Alright, I think this will be the last video for today. You know, had a nice little marathon, got 4 videos out. One's a little short because the recording stopped recording. But whatever.
Constant orbit over the decayed amusement park. One moved freely. The other two were anchored, one apiece, to the 2 tallest buildings still standing within the curtain of the wall. The first was leashed to an old hotel.
Oh god. Have any of you played Black Ops? Like the mission, the prison break mission with all the fucking Russians and like all the steps to freedom. Oh, that was so cool. I want Lil Pip to do that. I want Little Pip to have a Vorkuta breakout mission. Oh, that would be so cool. Just fucking... Oh, that'd be awesome!
Now,
it's not going to happen, is it?
Which towered just a few blocks beyond the eastern edge of the Philadelphia Fun Farm. The huge lettering on the 20th floor balcony was nearly rusted away and had long ago lost its lighting. But even without it, I would have recognized the Alpha Omega Hotel from its small picture in that old news article I'd seen a couple days ago. The second Pinkie Pie balloon was bound to a building rising out of the fun farm itself. It was clearly stylized as a barn, looking like nothing so much as a colossal version of the old building on Sweet Apple Acres. The first floors were covered in gaily colored murals and fairy tale characters, most of which had slid from the precipice of childlike frivolity into the valley of disturbing imagery. The roller coaster that looped all around the amusement park actually passed through the building on the 6th floor. A huge radio tower jutted up from the top, modified to look like a comically oversized weather vane. I realized that I was looking at the Philadelphia hub of the Ministry of Morale. I should have known. Pinkie Pie and her ministry had created the Sprite Bots. The source of the Sprite Bots broadcast had been the Ministry hub somewhere. It wasn't powerful enough to reach all the way to Manhattan, but with each Sprite Bot rebroadcasting the signal, the Ministry of Morale's reach had been effectively infinite. When Red Eye had taken the hub, he had simply added his sermons to the playlist. The music itself was the same songs that the Ministry of Morale had been broadcasting since before the war. As if mocking me for my revelation, the plucky harpsichord number playing over the speakers suffered an influx of lyrics. You gotta share. You gotta care. It's the right thing to do. I really, really wanted the gun. Oh, look. Called out a blood-red mare whose dark green mane was done up in spikes. She was lounging on the spectator railing of the Bumper Plow Arena. Fresh meat. The slave master ponies walking with us took their leave. Nash gave me a parting look that I couldn't interpret. Then we were alone with the other slaves. Many paid us no mind. Most that even spared us a glance did so with sad, resigned expressions. I felt sickened at the sight of several of them. Many were shedding their remains and coats, revealing boils or discolored flesh beneath, or suffered from withered limbs or sloughing facial features, the slowly dying victims of radiation poisoning. And then there were the bullies. The blood-red mare slid from the railing and stalked towards us. "Listen up, my little grubworms," she barked. Her cutie mark looked like an eyeball on a pike. I shuddered, wondering just how you end up getting that as a cutie mark. Blueberry Saber had warned me that I might have more to fear from my inmates than my guards. Another pony joined her, a hulking, piss-colored male pony with an ugly scar and the cutie mark of a very angry yellow flower. I got the absurd feeling that the flower wanted to kill me. The school and stable...
No, this came out way fucking before Undertale.
Stable 2 had bullies, and these ponies reminded me of them. No matter how powerless we all were, they could find power by making the rest of us even more miserable. It was contemptible, at best. With every pony suffering, I felt it was vile that some of the slaves themselves would go out of their way to make it worse for others. I had learned that the best way to gain strength was through friendship. Shouldn't we all be working together? But this was faster and...
Okay, that's done.
Fish. "I'm Blood," the appropriately colored mare with the spiked mane announced, then introducing the over-muscled buck. "And this is Daff." The lug stared at us, his eyes lingering on the mare's. "I know you all just heard Stern's big spiel about how Philadelphia is her town," Blood said, which I bet she wouldn't have dared if the Griffin were anywhere nearby. "Well, the Bumper Plow Pit is our domain." "What a glorious empire you have there," I snarked under my breath before I could stop myself. Blood looked like she'd been slapped. Excuse me? She trotted up, eyes narrowing. Did you just talk? Because it sounded like you just talked. And I don't remember telling you to. Why couldn't I keep my mouth shut?
Because
Well, at least maybe she kicked the crap out of me. She'd managed to crush all the biting bugs on my coat while she was at it. Then again, maybe it was a good thing I'd gotten her attention. If I became the bully's new chew toy, then that would spare the other slaves at least some of their attentions. I'd faced a dragon. I could take the crap these two could dish. Okay, so I ran away from the dragon. But that's just getting nitpicky.
Yeah.
Well, did you just talk? Blood demanded, sticking her snout against mine. She had to lower her head a little to do so, something I could see she enjoyed. My small stature made me a particularly appealing target.
Throat puncher!
I just said what a glorious empire you have. You know, with the crumbling amusement park ride. I stammered, cringing back. You must be so proud. Her eyes widened. Oh, you're just begging me to mess you up. She lifted up a hoof and brought it down on the chain of my manacles, driving my face into the dirt. Okay, Philly.
Shut a throat puncher.
This is life from now on. You speak when I tell you to speak. You lick where I tell you to lick. And you give me half your food rations every night. And maybe, just maybe, I'll keep you for myself rather than letting Daff here have you every Luna damn night till he splits you in two. I looked up at her, putting on a pitiful expression. Daff, she called back to the piss-colored brute. Fuck her up. Bad. The lumbering buck approached me with a nasty grin.
Choke him.
With pleasure. He spun and kicked. Hard. Pain exploded through my breast. I found myself flying back through the air. I crashed through the rotted remains of what had once been a hot dog stand, with a picture of Pinkie Pie slathering on the mustard. I was struggling to get on my feet when he slammed into me at full gallop, sending me sprawling. I thought I heard a rib crack.
Ah.
Breathing was becoming painful. The buck trotted up to me as I fought to catch my breath and reared up. Without armor, I was afraid he'd break my back, so I twisted. He compensated, his hoofs coming down on my stomach, knocking any wind I had out of me. I coughed, tasting blood. The huge buck positioned himself over me. My horn glowed softly as I wrapped a very tender part of him in my telekinetic sheath, and gave him a warning squeeze. Daff stopped abruptly. Here's the deal, I whispered, half moaning in pain. You decide I'm not worthy of your attentions. That way, you get to save face. In return, I don't show you just how good I am at this particular trick. I squeezed a little harder, and the buck jolted with pain, sweating now. And you keep yourself to yourself and away from all the other slaves, or the deal's off. A slight bit tighter, and Daff nodded fervently, tears spilling from his eyes as he tried not to scream. Deal? I asked, even though I knew he'd already agreed as I gave the telekinetic field a slight twist.
Ugh.
His reaction was utterly worth it. Good, I growled, my mouth tasting of warm copper. I released him, dropping my head back as my vision swam. I needed a medical pony. I needed Velvet Remedy. Shaking himself, Daff made a show of staring me down, and then dismissed me with a huff. Ah, fuck that, he said too loudly. She's so tiny to be like fucking a kid. He turned around. Blood was looking at him with one eye narrowed in disbelief. Daff glanced back over his shoulder at me, snorting, apparently deciding what he could and couldn't get away with. He drove his right hind hoof back with a gruesomely hard half-buck that landed directly between my hind legs. Then he trotted away, basking in the blood-colored mare's obvious approval. I'd never screamed so hard in my life. I have walked through the streets of Philadelphia, cleared of rubble, and seen the steel mill producing steel, the textiles mill producing cloth, and the power plant producing power. Red Eye's
Where's he
voice
getting the
sounded
cloth
proud
from?
through the tinny speakers on steel poles that jutted into the ruddy evening air. It is a start, but such a glorious start, and we owe it all to each other. What is this? I asked, half whimpering as a bowl of indescribable mushy stuff was shoved in front of my nose. The smell made my deeply bruised stomach convulse from revulsion. Oatmeal, the slave pony claimed flatly, scooping up a bowl full of the same discolored glop for the next pony.
Sure.
Oatmeal? Are you crazy? I stared in disbelief. This doesn't look anything like oatmeal.
No.
Or smell. Or, I added as another portion of the muck sloughed from ladle to bowl, sound. I gave half of the oatmeal to Blood, feeling like I was the one being cruel. Then I limped around until I found another pony who had been bullied out of his share and gave him the rest. I was in too much pain in tender places, including my stomach, to attempt eating anyway. In turn, he gave me very depressing advice on continued existence as a worker in Philadelphia. Don't choose the crater. Most ponies who go in there don't live even 3 months, much less 4. Don't choose the pit. You'll have to survive as many as 36 battles against other slaves to make it, and the battles were always to the death. I moaned at that. I couldn't see myself taking the life of another slave. Well, maybe Blood and Daff, but certainly not the innocent ones. He himself worked in the scrapyards, using a tool he called an auto axe to cut apart chariots and other large hunks of metal for melting down in the steel mill. It was dangerous work, and they were kept under supervision by guards in high places, but there weren't any whips. No slave master was going to get into a scrapyard with a slave wielding a spinning blade magically enchanted to slash easily through metal. He regaled me with the many ways to die in Philadelphia. One of the least pleasant ways was to work in the pits I had seen on the way in.
Yeah.
But fortunately, he said, those were reserved for ponies who try to escape, or worse, sabotage Red Eye's work. What are they? Philadelphia is a bit of a parasite problem, the pony told me as he ate the remainder of my glop.
Oh god, how did they
Apparently
mutate?
there was a massive infestation, maybe 3 or 4 decades before the megaspells. Supposedly they wiped it out, but parasites are still really persistent. He licked the bowl while I tried not to gag. A couple years back, Red Eye's bucks were blasting their way into one of the stables that was pretty close to the crater and cleared open a pocket full of the damn things, all irradiated to hell and nastier than ever.
Yep.
Bloat sprites? I asked, but he shook his head. Nah, bloat sprites is what happens to parasites when they get themselves tainted. Big and mean, but don't tend to reproduce, and that's a blessing, you trust me on that. He looked at me gravely. These little buggers are irradiated. Big difference. So, what do they do? Oh, same thing they've always done. Eat and spit out more. The pony fixed me with a stare. Only now they're carnivorous.
Oh.
They eat ponies? Oh, Celestia. And those chimneys. The buck cocked his head. Well, that's where we incinerate the nests they find. Only way to make sure they stop reproducing is to kill them with fire.
Right.
He scowled.
Sensible.
Problem is, there are some ones in the deep nests that don't get properly cooked by the exterminators. They wake up from the heat, fly out. The mesh on the work pits make sure they don't get too far. And one of the guards always has a flamethrower. Especially after that one mare had one of them buggies flying to her throat.
Oh!
They ate her from inside out. Pure nightmare fuel. I really wished I could unhear that. But as bad as that was, on the top of his lists of way to die was unity.
That's fucked up.
I know what that bastard Red Eye says, but I've known plenty of ponies who volunteered for unity and not one of them ever came back. He confided in me. According to some ponies, the goddess, whatever that's supposed to be, is turning them into those big alicorn critters we see hereabouts. But if that was true, then I figured there would be a lot more of them. And do you think one of them bothered to come back and say hello to friends, being as they can fly and all? I didn't think it helpful to tell him that there were probably more of them than he thought. My mind was already processing the other information. The pseudo-goddesses had no cutie marks, and were at least guided through a telepathic source. My mind reeled at the possibility that transformation removed their individuality and sense of self completely. Doing that to a pony would be worse than murder. Night was chilly, and I had no blanket. I lay in the rat-chewed old mat which had been the bed of the slaves before me, most of whom were probably dead now. The mat was so worn it felt harder than the cement beneath it, and so stained that I didn't really want to touch it. But it was all I had. My body was badly bruised, and it still ached to breathe. My rib had been cracked, but thankfully not broken. I tried wholeheartedly to ignore the worst of the lower pain. Part of me wanted to kill Daff as painfully and bloodily as possible. Part of me wanted to curl up and cry. I fought down both urges. Considering what I did, and threatened to do to the piss-colored bastard, I think part of me wanted to show that I could take what I was willing to dish out. Mostly, though, I had told him so he could save face. And as much as I hated it, I had to acknowledge that that is exactly what he did.
Yeah.
The sky above was black with reflective tinges of orange and red. With the fall of night, all the forges and fires and other glowing things were more pronounced, giving the Philadelphia ruins an infernal cast. The worst was the subtle red tinge to the air that became a luminescent glow within the massive pit where the megaspell-carrying missile had struck, missing the massive industrial sectors of the city to find the heart of the civilian housing. Darkness never truly fell in the core of the Philadelphia crater. A gust of wind brought a deeper chill and a choking, acrid smell with it from somewhere
I'm
deeper
out of
in
water.
Philadelphia.
Shit.
A few of the other slaves coughed in their sleep. I shivered and tried to breathe without inhaling. I missed my friends. I wondered if they were okay.
They're all dead.
My mind
All
had
of them.
begun playing through all the mistakes I'd made. All the ways of my plan could have gone wrong. Somewhere not far away, I caught sight of a small burst of green flame. Getting up, I slipped quietly out, bringing up my eyes forward sparkle to help me find the balefire phoenix. My heart felt thankful for the company as I spotted her perched on a sign shaped like a smiling Pinkie Pie holding up a hoof. You must be this tall to ride the Fun Farm wheel. Behind her, the massive iron structure of the wheel rose above the park like a mechanical eye, watching us bail.
Yeah, I wonder, was Pinkie Pie getting royalties for the use of her image? Man, that rock farm must have been blinged out by this point. Well, not this point, but by that you get it.
Hopefully.
Like in Hercules,
at me.
where the farm just has a massive golden
I told her earnestly.
pantheon in the back.
I didn't think I could make it through this trial alone. I considered asking her questions, or requesting that she ferry a message to Velvet Remedy, or half a dozen other things that I dismissed in turn. Instead, I chose to just sit there, resting my head against the two-dimensional Pinkie Pie and enjoying her company. Well, let's put you to work, Mr. Shiny said, looking me over. Mr. Shiny was the slave master pony in charge of assigning work to new slaves, and I thought he had a deceptively kindly voice. I see you've got a pit buck, and you should be tagged for a visit to Dr. Slaughter, but I figure we can hold off on that. He gave me a smile that seemed personable but had no real warmth. What do you say we
He's
put
a
that visit
sales
use
pony!
instead? I was still terribly sore and walked with a slight limp, but he didn't seem to notice, or at least not care. I was sure he put ponies to work who were in much worse shape. What do I have to do? Well, there's a building in town that's been infested with Paris Brights, but this time we can't just go in with flamethrowers.
No.
So we could use a pony with a pit buck, Mr. Shiny explained. That thing can spot targets for you, right? We'll send you in there with environmental barding and with a lower-powered magical energy weapon. Shoot the damn things until they're piles of ash. How many are in there? The fretful nightmares of the night before replayed themselves in my mind. Oh, it shouldn't be more than 50. They haven't had anything to snack on since the infestation was discovered. Poor Whitetail. Within half an hour, he had me equipped and ready to go. Except for ammo. I'd get that after I entered the building. They'd shove it through a mail slot. Beams of bright magenta magical energy lanced through the air at me from the security turret in the hallway ceiling. One of the blasts struck my environmental suit, melting a hole into the size of a hoof just below my cutie mark and burning my flesh underneath. As I threw myself behind a desk, I hoped it wouldn't scar like the slash on my neck. The terminal on the desk glowed softly, the same sickly pale green that almost all of them did. I hid myself behind it as I began to hack into the system. It took me a moment.
If there's an energy turret in there, how did they know it was Paris Sprites that killed the guy and that he just didn't get blasted to hell? Also, Lil Pip, now's a good time to try to find a screwdriver.
Terminal security was pathetic. And I was in luck. The terminal could shut down the turrets. The turret let loose another barrage of pink energy. Several lancing bolts struck the backside of the terminal. It exploded in my face with a blast of sparks. I would have been permanently blinded, if not outright killed, had the environmental suit not included a gas mask and heavy goggles. I cringed back behind the desk and considered my options. Until now, the bug hunt was more frustrating than dangerous. The barding had been made effectively immune to the parasprites, and I'd become so practiced in the art of stealth that I could sneak right up behind one before the half-blind thing spotted me. Which was good, since I had almost no skill with magical energy weapons. Even
They're
at
just
close
guns.
range, even with sats, I missed as often as I hit. As the turret spewed out another barrage, a little yellow parasprite flew towards me, drawn by the smell of my burned flesh. I slipped into sats as it drew close, aiming the laser and firing. I hit it with the third shot, and it disintegrated into a flash of turquoise ash. I dropped the targeting spell, and then kicked it back up a second later to help me take down 2 more parasprites, one of which was approximately the color of dead flesh.
Oh.
I think I'm in trouble. I checked the magical spark pack. The second 2 had taken me 5 shots to vaporize. Better, but still not good.
Yeah, you're getting good at it. You're learning.
Initial scan. There were 52 parasprites in the building that I had to wipe out, and I had just killed parasprites numbered 19 through 21. That left 31 more to go, most of which I knew were swarming around the building's factory floor, an area which I had been avoiding, choosing to clear out the rest of the building first. Only, now they smelt flesh. I had 7 shots left. Really in trouble.
Oh boy.
The turret poured out even more magical energy, trying to strike me down. Not smart enough to realize there was a whole big metal desk in the way. The desk was getting warm to the touch. If I didn't find more ammo in this place, or even better, another weapon. I opened the desk just to check. Bottle caps. 3 of them. I let out a scream of frustration. I looked around, spotting a door marked maintenance.
Yeah, that's
nearby.
gotta be fucked.
Wrapping the desk in a field of levitation, I carried it alongside me as a shield while I dashed for the door. It was locked. I still didn't have a screwdriver. Looking towards the heavens. If either of you 2 are actually up there, I'm really sorry for doubting. Really sorry. I apologize. Now, could you please send me a break? The turret fired again. The desk was no longer just warm. It was beginning to radiate heat. 3 more parasprites flew into the room, drawn to my smell. Well, fuck you too, both of you, I shouted upwards. Go lick each other's. I slid into sats and sent a flurry of targeting spell-guided shots at the parasprites. 2 turned to ash. The third was struck, falling to the floor but not dying. The other shots missed. And now I was out.
Well, you still
I
got
panted,
the Q's
my
as a
rib
club.
injury burning and making it hard to breathe. Damn it. The turret fired again. The desk was now glowing. In frustration, I snapped. You want this so much? Here, take it. Keeping the desk between me and the turret, I floated it up to the offending machine and slammed at it over and over until it stopped working with a crunch. I then floated it past me the other way, flipping it over and dropping the glowing metal surface on the wounded blue bug. I managed to close myself in an office above the building's main floor. The hallway that the turret had been protecting had led to this room, the equivalent of an overmare's office. There was a small door on one side that probably led to a closet, and massive plate glass windows that looked over the main work area. I stared out one of the windows at the massive, cute, colorful predators swarming between the catwalks above and the printing presses below.
You need like some Molotovs or something.
Same aesthetic, I noted dourly. It was like the world before had a hard-on for industrial accidents. I also now understood why going in with flamethrowers was not so much an option. The building was a printing house, and a lot of it was full of books, posters, a veritable cornucopia of fuel for an out-of-control fire. Such a fire would probably destroy the very things I was sure Red Eye was after.
Yeah.
The presses.
Shit.
I had to applaud the stallion. He had power, steel, textiles, and now he was working on bringing back mass publication. As far as I could tell, the only book that had been written and distributed on As far as I could tell, the only book that had been written and distributed
I like
on
how he
any
fucked up
significant
there.
scale since the apocalypse was the Wasteland Survival Guide. Getting this place running would be a major step forward. Those schools he was promising suddenly began to look very real. I spotted several more automated turrets covering the main work floor. Damn things ignored the bugs, but I knew that they'd attack if I so much as stepped a hoof into that room. I was in no shape to deal with that many parasprites, much less the damn turrets. The room had a desk with a still-functioning terminal. I sat down and began to hack, hoping that I could turn off any other turrets from here. The password, interestingly, was Generous Souls.
Really?
Welcome to the Ministry of Image, Philadelphia Hub, Miss Periwinkle. How are you this fine morning? It has been 202 years, 37 days, 1 hour, and 13 minutes since your last login. Would you like to check your messages? Wait. This was a hub? But there wasn't anything here. It was a small building, little more than a print shop.
Ooh.
There was nothing here.
Oh,
That
hidden rooms,
made no
hidden
sense.
rooms. Check for hidden doors.
This wasn't a tower. It was 2 stories tall. And I'd seen enough of the building to be pretty sure it didn't have secret sublevels. There weren't many offices. Nothing more than what would be expected from a small publishing house.
Oh.
I got up and started looking around. There were posters on the wall of the office, and many more visible down on the printing floor below. I had seen most of them before. Everything from progress posters of the Ministry of Wartime Technology to the image of Twilight Sparkle above the words, "Reading is Magic." The poster I'd seen in the Ponyville Library, only without the disfiguring graffiti. I glanced back to the terminal and noticed something else. On the desk was an old album. I opened it and began magically flipping through the pages, all full of collected scraps. Old newspaper articles, flyers, public notifications. Most were decayed beyond readability. Of those that weren't, many were familiar. The clinic warning about wartime stress disorder, for example. One of the barely readable newspaper articles that caught my eye. Dragon over Hoofington. The Shadowbolts, led by Rainbow Dash, engaged the Dragon Brimstone over the skies of Hoofington last weekend as Zebra forces managed their deepest strike into Equestria in the war's 13-year history. All rumors that the Zebras have enlisted the aid of the dragons native to their homeland has been confirmed. Princess Luna vows to expand Equestria's Pegasus. The rest was supposedly continued on another page. The rest of this one was a picture of Rainbow Dash standing proudly at the head of the fallen monster. It was the sort of image that would have branded Rainbow Dash as a national hero in the minds of ponies for generations. I closed the book and looked back at the screen.
How the fuck did she
and
kill a
I
dragon?
began to understand.
Like, what kind of weaponry
I thought
do
back
you
at the Pinkie
use?
Pie poster that first alerted me to the existence of the ministries. If I'd been asked, I would have said the Ministry of Morale had been the first I had seen. I would have been wrong. The Ministry of Image was the first one I had seen. Only, it hadn't gone by that name. It almost never went by that name, at least not externally. In fact, I suspected that Principles of Proper Pony Speech was supposed to be an internal document. The Ministry of Image didn't seem to do projects of its own. It worked in service of the other ministries. It created their materials, their books, their posters, their flyers, and, in one case, even their armor. Every poster associated with one of the other ministries. Hell, probably every time I had seen or heard anything from any of them, I was seeing the Ministry of Image. The invisible ministry. That was everywhere.
The Ministry of Propaganda.
I downloaded Miss Periwinkle's messages into my Pip-Buck for later perusal, then moved on to the more pressing task of dealing with the turrets. I had hoped I could turn off the turrets through the terminal in what I considered the Overmare's office. But the terminal allowed me to do one better. It allowed me to reprogram the turrets to wipe out the parasprites. I crouched behind the desk, listening to the barrage of turret fire fill the main floor of the MI hub. The parasprite kill count of my Pip-Buck had shot up to 39, and was only now beginning to slow. I realized I would have to hunt down the last ones, the ones in rooms and spaces the turrets didn't cover. But suddenly, my job was a lot easier. My luck just kept improving. There was a bathroom off to the side of this office.
It's like you suddenly leveled up
Toilet
and
water made
upgraded your
my
luck.
Pip-Buck creak, and the sink was completely non-functional. A plumber pony had been working on it when the megaspell hit. Her skeleton was still in the room.
Screwdriver.
She'd been killed by a chunk that fell from the ceiling. There wasn't much left of her maintenance uniform, but it was enough to patch the hole in my environmental suit with the aid of wonder glue. And there had been several bottles of the latter in the pony's toolbox, along with a wrench and, squee, a screwdriver. There had also been a feebly locked medical box with a few healing bandages and a couple extra bobby pins. And a tin of mint towels.
Now pause. Okay. Woo! I paused in a good spot. So that's all for the marathon. I have to edit all this. Okay, it's going to take forever.